At the Farsight Institute, we have been conducting experiments over the last few years using remote viewing to investigate aspects of physics related to cosmology, time, prediction. We do not use untrained viewers. We use only viewers that have an average training of about a decade or more in military-derived or exact military procedures. We work in collaboration with the project I'm going to be talking about today with the Hawaiian Remote Viewing Guild, led by Glenn Wheaton out of Special Forces, and a group of controlled remote viewers led by Lynn Buchanan out of Army Intelligence. This climate project is based on theory of remote viewing that comes out of my book, recently published, 2006. This is the only science book on the subject of remote viewing that focuses exclusively on the science of the process of remote viewing as it is done by military or military-derived structured data collection platforms of remote viewing. If you haven't got it, if you haven't read it, I'm not trying to plug it, but I am saying this is where the science that I'm going to be talking about today is derived. This particular project is a result of some success that we have. We have successfully been able to, in a deterministic manner, describe the future each and every time. Now the trouble is, we have a lock-it-up problem. The method that we use to describe the future requires us to have a temporal outbounder. A temporal outbounder is a person who is in the future cooperating with us. This person is the person who will be tasking the sessions. Let me give you an example of how this works. Let us say a remote viewer. Now, we don't do lottery problems for these experiments, but I'm going to use a lottery analogy. It hits home. Let us say a remote viewer views a number, but we don't know what the number is. We don't know what the number means. We have a number. That's it. We take it. We put it in a safe. We lock it up. And we wait a couple weeks. And then we go to the tasker, and the tasker we say, hey, why don't you pick a target for us? And the tasker says, I've got an idea. How about yesterday's winning Powerball number? Okay. So we go back to the safe. We open it up. It was in there. A piece of paper was in there for 2 weeks. We pull it out, and sure enough, it was yesterday's winning Powerball number. Now listen. Did we predict the future? No. Did we describe the future? Yes. Only with a temporal outbounder can we deterministically, each and every time, describe the future. But we must have that temporal outbounder. It's the lock-it-up problem. So we didn't win any money, even though we described the future. Now, that's target time A. When the viewing time happens first, there is no target. In almost all of our experiments, we put the viewing time first. No target exists. The target time is sometime after the viewing time. The tasking time is after that. So if the tasking time, the time when the target is chosen, is on one end, and the viewing time is on the other, and the target is a target event of some type in the middle, we can describe it. But that doesn't help us. What if we want to help the evolution of society? What if we want to be able to predict the future? What if I want to know what's going to happen in Los Angeles in 6 months? That's where useful prediction occurs, where we don't have a temporal outbounder, we have target time B. Talking deterministically, due to the theory that I have developed over the years, I have resolved that it is, on a level of physics, absolutely impossible to do that. There is no hard problem that needs to be solved. It cannot be solved. There is no way to predict the future deterministically with one timeline if you do not have a temporal outbounder. The theory has to do with multiple realities or multiple universes. Again, I do discuss this in the book. And it does have correspondence with theories of physics that largely correspond with Hugh Everett's ideas in quantum mechanics, David Bohm's ideas, cosmologically speaking. But the basic idea is that multiple realities coexist with our own. If you think that's not possible, well, where's the past? I started this presentation a few minutes ago. Where is it? We can remote view it. It still exists. You can't see it. The future, it's there. We can remote view it. You can't see it. It still exists. You might as well understand other realities similarly can be there, but we can't understand it. We have just completed a 1-year project called the Multiple Universe Project at the Farsight Institute using these heavily trained remote viewers, and the results are affirmative that the multiple universe reality is in fact correct, or the remote viewing phenomenon works as if it is correct. So we want to be able to start at one time point, such as 2008, and have two timelines, timeline A and timeline B. I cannot predict what your future will be, but this experiment is designed to determine if we can look at two example futures. You get the idea? I can't select one future, but we can, this is this experiment, pick two futures, two future timelines in two future realities and look at them and say, well, what happens with this one? And what happens with that one? And then we can make decisions early on to move our evolution, the future, our future, in the direction of one time or the other, timeline or the other. The goal is to be able to enable society to not walk blindly into the future, but to evolve in a more productive manner in directions that would be more productive. Is it better to go in the direction of timeline A or timeline B? So for this experiment, we have two dates, 2008 and 2013. We have two timelines for 2013. Timeline A involves a timeline in which we describe a certain type of event occurring. Timeline B is where that event does not occur. We have 8 geographical locations. We have mastered the realm of having public participations using various forms of encryption. We have our sessions, we do everything first, we put all documentation up on the web encrypted, no one can look at it, but tens of thousands of people download our experiments when we do them, and then they wait. It's 256-bit military-grade encryption. For this particular situation, we had, say, 18 targets. Thus, we had to have 18 sessions from our viewers. Now, these targets were not associated with the sessions in the beginning. We didn't know if session 1 was going to be associated with session 10, with target 10, or if session 2 was going to be associated with target 3. We had 999 possible random combinations of those target assignments. We took those 999 and put them up on the web, including a rule that said, and no one knew the rule either, so no one in Wall Street could have fiddled with this. But on June 4th, all the sessions were done before the end of May, uploaded, encrypted, tens of thousands of people were downloading them. On June 4th, 2008, the Dow Jones number, the last 3 integer digits, were the 3 numbers that would determine which of the 999 target assignment possibilities were used. The Dow Jones number for June 4th, 2008 was 12,390. So the 390th target assignment rule, which looks sort of like that, was used. Now, to give an example, session 1 is associated with target 6, session 2 associated with target 15, and so on. Sessions were done first. Targets were assigned to the sessions by a truly random process that no one on the planet Earth, including me, could ever have known because the Dow Jones number determined it. And that was done after all the sessions were up. And everything was made available for public download, and tens of thousands of people downloaded it, all encrypted. The results were later posted with the passwords to decrypt the sessions so the world could see that nobody cheated. These are the targets. Vaitupu Tuvalu, right at sea level. Fort Jesus, ruins in the middle of the center of the city of Mombasa in Kenya. The Opera House in Sydney, Australia. We wanted to know if there was still going to be snow on the top of those mountains, Mount Kilimanjaro. The Capitol building in Washington, D.C., virtually at sea level. Malé International Airport in the Maldives. KITV building in Honolulu. One of our great remote viewers, Dick Algar, works there at sea level. The Vehicle Assembly building at Cape Canaveral. This is an example of how a target was specified, the name, latitude, longitude, target of elevation, plus the picture and the target time, 2008. For target 13, for the date 2013, we had 2 timelines. One timeline, timeline A, was for the timeline in which the leadership of the mainstream global scientific establishment continues to ignore or deny the reality of the remote viewing phenomenon and the existence of life not originating from Earth. On the second one, it was the timeline in which, by the end of 2009, which already passed, the leaders of the mainstream global scientific establishment publicly recognized the reality of remote viewing and the existence of life not originating from Earth. These are not our timelines, but they're somebody's timelines, and we want to be able to look at them to see if there's any difference. Acknowledging the reality of remote viewing and even microbial extraterrestrial life might change the way people react to the planet, and that was the theory we were doing. We also added 2 other targets later on, which was Key West. The main difference was that the end time was for the scientific community to decide whether they were going to talk about remote viewing and extraterrestrial life openly was the end of 2011. This is an example of how we scored the sessions. We scored the sessions with clarity scores clarity scores range between 0 and 3. A 0 is a terrible session, nothing's right. A 3 is a perfect session, everything's great. A 2 is a really good session, some decoding errors. A 1 has got some problems. So we're looking for 2s and 3s. These are military grade remote viewers. There's only like 20 of them on the planet, folks. These are the best there is. This is nothing like you've ever seen with regard to untrained college kids. These are military-grade remote viewers. And this is a typical 3. This is Ann, HRVG, out in Hawaii, the Hawaii Remote Viewing Guild. The target was Mount Kilimanjaro. That's what we expect. The snow-capped mountains, some runoff water, we expect Mount Kilimanjaro. This is DAS. This is controlled remote viewing, working with Lynn Buchanan. This is the Sydney Opera House in Australia. He not only drew the Opera House, plus its adjacents, nature right next to the water, but he also wrote in Sydney. This is military-grade remote viewing. Now, this whole presentation is based really on this table. So let's spend a moment to look at it. The clarity scores are clarity scores for all the sessions. Note that we had 113 sessions. 37 of the sessions were for the 2008 time period for all of those targets. Now look, of those 37 sessions, 46 had a clarity score of 3. You're not used to that unless you started to work with these viewers. 22% had a clarity score of 2. If you think of 2s and 3s, 2/3 of them had dead-on sessions. Now, let's look at the timelines for 2013. 38 sessions. 2013 hasn't happened yet. Some physical elements we expect will have to be there. Mount Kilimanjaro is still going to be a mountain. Tuvalu is still going to be an island, things like that. So if you look at those physical characteristics that would have to be there under any circumstances and use that to evaluate clarity scores, you get huge numbers, which is what we typically expect with these viewers. 54%, 24%, 39%, 21%. You have way over 50% type of clarity scores. In addition, now we also noticed that there were some disaster scores. Truthfully, we were not expecting any disasters no matter what the Sony pictures did with 2012. We were not expecting anything related to disasters. We were expecting trying to figure out snow levels in Mount Kilimanjaro, maybe an inch of sea level rising, stuff like that. But we ran across disaster scores. So I'm just reporting what we have. I'm not predicting our timeline will be like this. I'm just saying we looked at these 2 timelines and I'm telling you this is what we got. The experiment is not over. It's over in the middle of 2013. So this is a preliminary report. Disaster scores also go between 0 and 3. 3 is a complete wipeout. I mean complete total disaster. A 2 is almost the same. 1 is significant damage. 0 is, hey, the tourists are still happy. Okay? Nothing's wrong. Look at the disaster content for the 2008 sessions. Nothing happened that was disastrous in 2008, right? That's what we got. 86% had absolutely nothing wrong with any of those places. Remind yourself, every single one of these sessions was determined which target it would get after June 4th with the Dow Jones. It was physically impossible for any remote viewer to know when they were remote viewing a 2013 target or a 2008 target. No one on the planet Earth could have known, period. Look at the 2013 timelines. 39% of the timeline A had total wipeout disasters. 34% had total wipeout disasters, a little better for timeline B. If you look at the 2s and the 3s, you're talking about 50% approximately. Now let's summarize this. There were 2 sessions out of 37 that had 2s or 3s in the disaster scores for 2008. For timeline A, 2013, 20 out of 38 had 2s or 3s. For timeline B, a little better, meaning it seems to be that the scientific community fessing up actually helped something. 13 out of 38 got 2s or 3s. Now, what are we actually talking about? What were the physical elements that they were describing? They were talking about impacts of all things. We were looking for snow level changes, and they're talking about meteors coming in. They're talking about meteor impacts, tsunamis, something hitting the water, possible volcanism because of the deep impact. They're talking about extensive, forceful flooding of coastal areas, excessive solar radiation, storms, and other severe weather. For the human elements, we had massive self-organized relocation from coastal areas, refugees, the breakdown of rescue or other notable governmental functioning. There were no rescue helicopters, no National Guard in any of these data. The breakdown of the food supply system, the breakdown of the vehicular transport system, extensive loss of buildings near the coast. This is an example. Daz Smith, CRV, he had an impact of something that hit the water outside of Sydney, Australia, producing a huge wave, and that was in timeline A. Interesting, he didn't find any people in timeline A. In timeline B, he found not only that, but he found tons of people streaming out, unorganized or self-organized refugees, streaming out of an exodus out of Sydney. For Mombasa, Kenya, a different target, same viewer, timeline A. He had an impact of something causing a huge tsunami. Here's a tsunami crashing into the land, his description. Dick Allgaier had an exactly same type of thing. He had a huge tsunami crashing into water in Mombasa, Kenya. The other one with Daz Smith was also Mombasa, Kenya. The question is, how big was the water wave? Mount Kilimanjaro is not too far away from the coast. He had the water getting almost to the foot of Mount Kilimanjaro. That's a huge wave, folks. Now, again, I'm not predicting our future. I can't. All I'm saying is, according to the theory, right or wrong, this is somebody's future. And we're trying to look at what it looks like. The question is, what is the spatial width? What color shirt did you wear this morning? Look, that's a very small event. Whether you wear a blue shirt, a white shirt, a pink shirt, that small event has a very small spatial width. It's not going to affect many timelines. Maybe one, maybe two, maybe three, but not many. An earthquake in Los Angeles, a bigger event. It will affect more timelines because it's a bigger event. Some realities, some timelines will have a big earthquake. Others will have a rather minor earthquake. Something like this that we're talking about seems to have a much larger global implication for whatever it is. And that would have a large spatial width. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to figure out if something has a large spatial width, does it possibly affect our time stream? I don't know. Remember what Einstein said. If we knew what we were doing, we wouldn't call this research. This is research. We don't really know what we're doing. These are the data that we've gotten. We've got to wait till 2013 to be able to figure this out. One thing is remarkable, no matter what your theory is for why these viewers got that stuff, they really got a binary result between 2008 and 2013. Maybe you're thinking that the fairy godmothers telepathically injected the ideas into their minds. Maybe you're thinking they were remote viewing the movie 2012. My theory is they were remote viewing alternate realities that actually do exist for someone. The question is, if there are multiple universes, these perceived possible futures are real for someone. The question is, are they real for us? I don't know. But you know, this is a golden opportunity for science. If there was a small climatic change, an inch of sea level, a little bit extra storms, we'd have a real tough time with this remote viewing. So at least we have a perfect scientific experiment to set up where major change is expected and we can actually see if the results of the scientific experiment work. If they in fact work, we may have actually discovered a way by looking at alternate timelines to start navigating the future for society. And that would be a great goal.